Welcome to Senior Aspects with your host, Ann Severs. Each week, Ann will talk about the issues that affect the 50 and older community. So grab a cocktail and hang out with Ann. After all, the kids aren't around anymore to spoil the fun.
Hello and welcome to Senior Aspects. I'm your host, Ann Severs, and my guest today is Margie Shephard, one of the most fabulous ladies that I've met. And so today, I think our subject is going to be over 50 and fabulous.
Well, over 50 and fabulous just doesn't even begin to scratch the surface, but let's make that an intro, shall we?
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And what part of being fabulous and over 50 do you want to start with?
Let's just start, when I first met Margie, I realized when I met her, she's very a classy lady. She's an entrepreneur, does lots of great events and such. And the first time I met Margie, I'd said to her, I look for her to pass a torch to us in our generation, because you have paved the way for women for 74 years. For 74 years, because she just turned 74. Doesn't she look fabulous for 74?
Oh, Ann, thank you so much. But you have to add something, that's 74 years young.
Absolutely.
I mean, if we're going to be starting at fabulous 50 and over, it's fabulous 50 and over years young. Everything is years young if you're thinking in not only the world of today, where you've come from, where you're going, and whose lives you hope to make a positive difference with besides your own. Because if you can't do it for yourself and make a positive difference, and then for family, and then for friends, who can you do it for?
Exactly.
I mean, it really is all about life experience, good and bad, and how you overcome your will to win at life. And again, whose life you really, really want to touch other than your own in the most positive way.
Yeah, and I think that, children. So I think women, when we have children, we lose ourselves. And that is really important. I think people are talking about it more and more. But at the time, when my mom was raising us, nobody ever was encouraging them to self-love, self-growth, all of those things. And so tell me a little bit about Margie and how you became to be 74 and fabulous. And young.
Well, actually, it was before I turned 50 and fabulous and very young. I have one child, and he's not a child anymore. He's a man, fully grown, 54 years old, highly, highly successful with the Chevron Corporation. And then, of course, from there, I have 2 grandchildren. So the lessons I learned started way back when they came into this world. And I had definite issues, medical, myself. I'm a serious cancer survivor.
Wow.
And the issues that I had to overcome with that at a young age, and the getting lost part of being a single parent for many, many, many years, it was challenging. And do the children understand? No. So as time would go on, I started later in life, after surpassing the cancer issues, with a major corporation here in the United States. And it was in weight loss. And I put my first 25 years in there, helping women and men to discover their real issues as to why they have a weight issue. But then they would discover it was more than just overeating or going to a fast food restaurant or too much dining out. Things were excessive in one way, shape, form, or another. So that's really where I started.
So did you travel?
Yes, I did.
So how did you raise a son being single and traveling?
Well, I did something that's very common today that was not common then. Being a single mother and overcoming cancer, many years of surgery, treatments, and so forth, I realized that I wanted more for him. And 9 to 5, behind a desk, Monday through Friday, wasn't going to do it. Not at the income that was being offered at that time. So I decided that I had more in me. I wanted to be better. I wanted to show that anyone can be better. I approached my son's father, who was remarried, had a second family, and I said, he needs to be stable. He needs stabilization, guidance. He needs to be involved in Little League, sports, and so on. I can't do that with in trying to work. He will only be passed off to babysitters or to private schooling, and that's no life either. To be in a normal, loving family scenario was the better thing. However, I would reverse the visitation rights. So every other weekend, I would pick up my son. If I was going to be out of town, I would fly him in.
Oh, okay.
I would fly him in, no matter where I was. No, he would come. Vacations, so forth, school clothes, holidays, school events, when possible, I was back for all of those. He became very much involved in sports because of the family life, and did very, very well in school, high school. He was spotted by a pro team because he was a pitcher.
Oh.
And life went on, and he had a stepbrother that was 2 months older. So as they were growing up, they became close. So I said, okay, brothers need to do things as brothers. So there were times I would pick them both up, or I would fly them both to wherever I am. Birthdays, Christmases, Easter baskets, you name it. I saw to it that he saw that sharing and caring was by far better than being selfish because he was actually an only child.
You know, it's funny you mentioned my daughter was I really do consider both my children to be single children. My daughter is 29 and my son is 14, and I was just talking to Sid about this in an interview I was doing earlier. I've been having a little bit of a hard time. It's a lot different when you have your kids that far apart. It's like starting all over again. So here I was 40 when I had Eli. Your one child's getting ready to graduate from high school, and that's the time for us to start reinventing ourselves.
Exactly.
So at first I would say things like, I just don't have it anymore to do the same things with Holly as I did, do the same thing that Eli did with Holly, but I've learned that I cannot say that. He's a different child. I mean, they are raised so different now than even 15 years ago.
Well, exactly. And, let's leave the subject of the children for just a second. Let's take a look at the parenting. You see, the parenting at that time, we were taught certain things by our parents and our grandparents, and they didn't want to change. Life wasn't necessary for them to change. And if you didn't do it the way mom did it, or dad did it, or the grandparents did it, you weren't doing it right.
Yeah.
So now, for me, I had only the one, but I had the two grandchildren. Now my grandson's 30 and my granddaughter will be 22 this coming Monday. With you had two children, far apart, and within different time frames.
Yeah.
And so we need to be reinventing what's going to work for
the new generation.
So that they can begin to understand but take on more responsibility. What we're seeing in the school system, what we're seeing with even in sports, activities, the school, specialty schools. There are those individuals that are not, say, college material, but to go to an occupational school. Okay, the requirements. All right. So what I'm talking about is not like, oh no, our kids they can't learn that. That's too complicated. No, the parenting stunted the growth of the youth of that era coming forward. When you have two children, it's just, again, my opinion, not that matters a lot, but it's from an outside observation, all right? In a way, we have something similar because my son and my grandson, you see, there were 20 years difference. Your two children, 15 years difference approximate. All right, when my son was being raised, it was with a different mindset. My grandson, again, a different mindset because of how the parents were.
Yeah, I mean, we were taught go to work every day, get your pension, retire with 30 years, but that's so few and far between anymore.
Well, for sure. And the 9 to 5 in many occupations now for both men and women, because it opens up more opportunity, as well as the younger generation from where they were. Eli is 14 now, and your daughter 29. My grandson is 30. He was not college material to go in and sit in the classroom, but he plugged along behind with school online. He's graduated with his bachelor and will graduate with his master's next year. However, that bit of education and struggling, he had ADHD and he was dyslexic in addition to. He generates now, and he's still a student. He works full-time as a corporate headhunter online and has for the last 10 years while going to school. All right. In making a good, solid income that would be able to support insurance, these various other things are very important. But then we run into another issue with today's generation as opposed to Eli's generation, your generation, or my generation, because of the stumbling blocks that the political world, corporate America, and a multitude of other organizations have laid out there for our children, our grandchildren, and for us that have had experience in the world. You see, we know the difference of what it was and how it is. So just to kind of circle that around and jumping up to 50 and being fabulous over that.
Yeah.
What makes it fabulous are a number of things. To sit back and see the rewards with the children, the generation, and what can be offered today. If the students that we have are wanting to work extra hard, to be extra special at what they do, which is 10 times harder than what I had to study for and you had to study for. All right? So from that side of being 50 and fabulous and definitely young, then there was my career and what I did to keep that going.
Yes.
What I did to keep that going and to hopefully be a positive impact with the youth of today, some of the women who dared not to step out with their genius, their ideas, their thoughts.
Yep.
They are stepping up. They want to know, how do you do it? They want to build, and this is where another area, one's confidence level has got to be elevated. But how can it be elevated if they don't have self-confidence?
Well, and if they don't have support, it's such, my Gen X. I am Gen X. You are baby boomer generation. Your generation was taught completely different than what my generation is. I think my generation is raising their kids completely different, but I also believe my generation in a good way.
Oh, yeah.
I think that we, because we see people like you who've broken barriers, but I also see something going on with the millennials too right now that concerns me a little bit. They are really, to me, a little bit too laid back with the kids. That concerns me a little bit for that generation. And you know what? I'm going to go back to your grandson. Not college material. That just makes me so upset to even hear that.
Well, let me
try. Because we're labeling them, and I don't like that either. Because there's a whole lot of that going on right now.
There is a lot of that going on. However, he was not an in-class college material type student because of his two medical setbacks, to be dyslexic and to be ADHD. But that did not deter him. He went online. He registered. He was online with Sac State and graduated with better than a B average.
Good for him.
For his bachelor degree. Now he's going forward. I think you're right. For those that are laid back about that, say, oh, well, I'm not college material, but they do nothing more. My grandson did considerably more. He recognized, and I recognized.
Well, maybe he got it from you because he saw what you did.
Well, with the major corporation, in fact, I'll mention it, it was the Nutrisystem Corporation based out of Allentown, PA.
Okay.
And that was back in the day when they had bricks and mortar, where people had to come in and go through their weekly routine and account for what they had done and so on. Well, what I did, because I didn't go to college, I didn't have that option because of the medical issue that I overcame. But Nutrisystem offered continued education. So I took advantage of that for 19 years of the 25 to expand my knowledge in health, medical care. I also feel that emotional support through proper professionals, which I sought for myself. So I continued my education in a different way.
Well, and to do the emotional support at that time, that you're ahead of the game, I think, because we did not discuss your generation didn't discuss those things.
No, but you see, I just came out of the chute, I said, hey, if you got a broken bone, go to an orthopedist. If you're going to have a baby, go to a gynecologist. If you're having difficulty feeling like you're worthy, go and see a psychologist or a psychiatrist to talk to them. Guess what? It's fashionable.
Yeah.
And I made it fashionable in my world back in the day, long before 50, and I had to. I had to do that because there was no way at my time in life. I was just in my very early 20s. I had the one and only child I would be able to have. And I could have no more. And in that era, well, we were supposed to, as women, go to school, graduate from high school, get married, have babies, stay at home, keep your mouth shut, and do nothing.
Yeah. And
follow what your mother did and follow what your grandmother did before her. Well, that was never going to be me, and I saw to it that it wasn't me. So, when I started speaking professionally with the Nutrisystem Corporation, and talking about issues. Obviously, when people are 100 pounds overweight or 50 pounds overweight or whatever it is, if their doctor says, no, there's nothing medically, physically wrong, I came out and I just said, you know what? I can't say that anybody here has an emotional issue. I had an emotional issue over some surgeries that I went through. My weight would go up, I would go down. But again, if you break a bone, go to an orthopedist. You have a baby, go to an OB. If you have an emotional issue, go and see a psychologist or a psychiatrist. Talk to your primary care. And I started talking about that over 50 years ago. And then I would just come out and say, no, come on. Guess what? There's nothing wrong. Think of it like this. They can't put your business on the street. You can discuss with them whatever it is you want. And between the two of you can come up with a solution. Now, it isn't going to happen overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day.
Yeah, well, and you get another opinion on something, and it's two heads working together rather than one.
Well, it is.
It's always good to bounce ideas off somebody, or just by having somebody, a confidant during that time probably helped a lot.
Well, many, I remember seeing faces like when I would say, well, yeah, I had an emotional issue. And the eyes would get like so. And I said, yeah, I went to a psychiatrist. In fact, to this day, I continue my emotional support. You've got to be able to accept certain facts about yourself, and then you get help and you go forward.
Yeah.
And it makes in my life, and I would think in others that I have talked to or that have reached out to me, sent me letters, called me, etc., it makes you stronger. Why does it make you stronger, and how does it make you stronger? Because you realize your weaknesses. Those weaknesses affect your confidence level. And when that confidence level is not there, You can't go forward in the most positive, productive way.
Well, it's not very attractive when you're not confident.
No, it isn't.
It makes you the way a woman carries herself. I'm not gonna be around somebody that's doing this all the time.
No,
I want to be
hold your head up high.
Yeah, hold your head up high and realize, and don't judge people. Just don't judge.
I had somebody say to me one time, and it was a man, and he said, "How could you say that you saw a psychiatrist or that you see a psychiatrist?" And I said, "How could I not say? I was doing something about the issue."
Yeah.
What are you doing, sir?
Yeah.
So, whatever it is, whatever you have to get past, when you get to 50 and you want to bounce over that to say, hey, it is 50, fabulous, and I could not be younger or feeling better, that's because you've looked at every avenue honestly, and you did what you needed to do to build that level of confidence, because that is the root and core of where I started.
Well, it sounds like I was talking to Sid earlier in my other interview, and we were talking about self-growth. So that's self-growth right there. And we didn't even call it that back then.
No,
she's crazy. She's going to see a shrink. But full circle now, I think just about everybody has a shrink, but it also, to me, it leads into self-growth. And you have to, if you do not try to grow within yourself, I feel sorry for people that don't. Some people don't want to.
They want to. They say they want to, but they do nothing about it.
Yeah.
And that's the point. So the problem, and a stronger point, is when you acquire that level of confidence that you want or that you need, then it's like a plant. You fertilize it. You feed it. It's the inner growth.
Yeah.
It's the inner growth. And it begins to dry up and wilt and whatnot when you stop applying yourself to learn, to grow. You could have degrees to wrap around the world.
Yep.
If you do not, step out and exercise them, show people that, hey, look, this is what I learned. You and I could have the same degree, and I may take a different approach than what you do. Does it make you wrong or me wrong? No. But we're out there.
Yeah.
We're hopefully making a difference.
But there's a difference between stepping out and stepping up, right? If you don't step out, you can't step up.
That's exactly right.
I love that. That should be one of our quotes. Let's go back. So you did Nutrisystem for 25 years.
Yeah.
Your son was probably graduated, I'm assuming, high school around that time.
My son did graduate. He graduated from high school. He was also working part-time as a stock person for the UPS Corporation.
Okay.
And then he would later go on with Chevron, of which he grew. And he went forward with their continued education. He recently retired after 33 years.
Wow, good for him.
And then he came to Las Vegas and he said, Mom, I'm moving to Vegas here. I want to buy a house. And so I said, this is great. So he's now here, bought a house, and I see him quite regularly.
Good for you. So how far does he live from you?
About 10 minutes away.
Nice. If anybody doesn't know Vegas, that's like a typical question here in Vegas. And does his children live here, your grandchildren?
No, they don't. However, they do come and they visit, and it's great. I sit back and I look, and I'm really very proud of them. Now, have they done everything the way that I would do it? No, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What matters is they stepped out, they continued their growth, and my granddaughter, as an example, she'll be 22 next Monday. She graduated from high school. She went to esthetician school, specialized in waxing. She acquired 2 degrees there, worked part-time at Home Depot, and started school for dental hygiene, and she'll graduate in October.
Oh, you have to let me know about that, because I actually have a dentist friend who's always looking for a hygienist. They actually make pretty good money. One of my good friends, they actually make my friend makes almost 6 figures.
Yeah.
Being a dental hygienist. So you have them, and then I want to talk about the fabulous Margie that I know.
Okay.
So I want you to tell us a little bit about I know the Nutrisystem story, but I want to tell them about how you put together these amazing events all over Vegas. And she puts on these events. They're very classy. They're like a very different event than anyone. I guarantee you it'll be different than any event you've been to in this city, which I need to talk about doing an event, by the way, because I've got like people screaming at me right now to do one, and I would love to do one. But tell me about how did that Power of Elegance, I believe, or
Global Power Elegance.
Global Power. Yes, I want to hear about that.
Okay.
And when did you start that?
All right, Global Power Elegance. You see, well, first, before Global, in 2018, I appeared at Mandalay Bay. And a very good friend of ours, Miriam Martinez, was very instrumental in helping me to pull all of that together. And we had SRO, standing room only. And I did a few things that, as a speaker, were not ordinarily done. And I have other ideas that, again, to keep it fun and upgoing. So, and uplifting, rather. But coming forward, Global Power Elegance. The definition is understand the elegance of your own power, which means,
that.
Again, it goes right back to the very basic of confidence, your confidence level, and whatever area you want to get into or whatever specialty that you have. Do you understand your own power, the very elegance of your own power to create, to administer, to execute, so that you can motivate, maximize, and then monetize?
Oh, I love that. I love that.
So I like doing different things. The traditional of what speakers normally do, I think a lot of people send a more powerful message, and I think this is great. But I think to do things where you're bringing something new every time.
Especially here in Vegas.
Well, especially here in Vegas, but something new, something that somebody
Fresh.
can walk away with each and every time. And I am, it's funny that you should mention about doing something. I have been kicking the idea around now that we're a little bit, even though we're going up and down the ladder with this COVID stuff and all of this nonsense. And it doesn't mean that there isn't a necessity for concern. It just depends on where you want to place the concern.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So, but I have been kicking around the idea of relaunching Global Power Elegance for both men and women. And bringing the two minds together. And if somebody wants to get up and say something, and if a man wants to come up and say, yes, but what about blah, 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 I mean, let's iron it out, let's kick it around. But let's also add some fun to it, and make it a little spicy. Put some starch in the arch and kick in the giddy up. Because if you understand the elegance of your own specific power, there isn't anything you can't do.
Amen to that.
I mean, call it the way it is, and then get in there and do something about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back in the networking game. It just dawned on me the other day. I was like, well, I knew I was interviewing you, and I think you and I are destined to do something together. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but I think we are destined to do something. We talked a little bit today about what we, one of our little plans we might have. But I can't wait to get back in the networking game a little bit. It's been a while. And then I think when we talked at lunch, the last time, we talked about doing an afternoon and then an evening one.
Right, exactly. No, my particular thought is, and the location has to be right. Has to be right. But my particular thought is, I want to accommodate people that are working throughout the day that cannot come to a luncheon. I want to accommodate those individuals that get off of work at a reasonable hour and can bring a friend or bring friends and come to an evening. So it's twice a month. One's a luncheon, one's a happy hour in the time frame. And then I'll make it whatever it is, we want to do to get some positive input and some ideas and some proper marketing.
That's so key. I was interviewing a gentleman earlier this morning, and he did an event yesterday for seniors regarding Medicare. And he actually got like 15 people in the room, which is really good for that event. But what I liked, what he did at the end, was he literally sat down with every single person individually and asked them what they took away from that. And I think that we need to do that more often.
If anything that we do now.
More than importantly, absolutely. Like whenever I first started doing videos and marketing, call of action, we hear about things like that. Well, we need to start doing that more of that. And just having those open conversations about, I would love to hear people's ideas because I know I don't know everything. I know you don't know everything.
Exactly. And in fact, there's so many people that have superb ideas. And when I've done an event in the past, and then I've asked a similar question, or somebody would say to me, have you ever thought about doing something this way, that way, whatever? Well, no, I haven't, but boy, that's awesome. And I'd look at them and I'd say, why aren't you doing that?
Well, I was going to say when you said that earlier, when we come to mind is maybe somebody has a good idea.
Right.
But they may not know how to execute it.
That's right. And this is where another thing, now that I've surpassed the fabulous 50, and I definitely have taken the Dynamic 65 and work that one out.
Yeah, for sure.
And now certainly have passed the 70 mark. I do some coaching, some directing, and I sit down with people when they want to sit down to find out what's stopping you. Is it that you don't know? You'd be surprised at the amount of people that say, well, I didn't think anybody would like it, and they hang in the head like this. No, first thing you got to do is lift that head, put that shoulders back, stand up.
Yep.
Say it. You know what? Do you know how many ideas that some of these other large named people out there have had that bombed? That bombed. But if they wouldn't have tried, they'd have never gotten to what actually clicked.
Yeah. Well, and like our friend that is going through stuff. It's not only that, but they want to do everything that the family wants them to do. And that is, we can't do that anymore. Like we're past that time. Margie's already paved the way through that time.
That's right.
Already paved the way of not having house slippers on and being 9 to 5.
Listen, if you want to stunt the growth from a parenting to your children at whatever the age, if you want to stunt it, go ahead, stay at home, let them move in, and rely on you. Tie up all your finances so that they're a part of that, and then they'll wake up one day and say, well, what about me?
Yeah.
Well, what about you? Because you see, the only person that can make that change is them. But here's the root of it all. When they've lived that way for many years, they did not stand their ground. They found it easier to do what the husband said. They found it easier to do that. And then ultimately, if for whatever the reason the husband passes or they end up being a single parent, they have to make up their mind as to whether they want to live. Now, they step out and they say, no, we're making change here. Now, the children, but they're actually young adults, have to pay attention because they have nobody to fall onto to pick up the pieces or to pick up part of a house payment or part of a medical, whatever, when in fact they're very capable of doing things on their own. You want your children to grow and be accountable for their life? Show them that you can be accountable for yours on your own.
For sure. You know, it's so crucial, I think. And money can be so good, but so bad.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen it break up families, with my own child, with her being a trust fund baby. I saw what it did to her. So and then we'll always use it against you.
Oh, well, of course they will. And I will tell you, I mean, I can't say we all, I will say there are many of us out there. In the very, very, very beginning, over 50 some years ago, I was Oh no, I'll help. I was working. I beat cancer. I helped get my son. I made the decision for him to grow up with his father, though I just reversed my positioning. I was always a part of his life, but in a different way. I would write checks. I would help, but it backfired. It backfired. They also forget just how often or how many times they went to the well. Then they become very hostile and very indignant if you dare to do something for you.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, that's the cold hard truth of it, because they're accustomed to this other. And the attitude of, you owe me? I don't think so.
I don't think so
either. So, our very good friend, who is a doll, she's got to wake up. She's got to want it for her. And there are other people out there. She's not leaving anybody on their deathbed. She's already paid her dues there and was total support thereof.
Yes. Yes.
It's a guilt thing to pull away. And the only way you can get past that is actually only a couple of ways. You become real selfish with yourself and say, look, it's my time, I'm doing it, and then you do it. If you cannot take that position, then get the professional help you need to find out why you really can't.
You know, it's my daughter and I, she's very strong, and I came to a point in our relationship where I wasn't going to put up with any more nonsense. I never had to help her financially. She was always very independent when it came to that, thank God. To this day, she has 2 babies now. She never asked me for anything, which I'm really glad, because I'd rather take her to Costco and pick up the tab or fill up her gas tank. That's what I'd rather do, because if you start doing this, it's always going to be like that. Well, so I've drew hard boundaries with her, just as far as the way we interact. Like, I will not entertain some of the things that she wants me to, well, she wants to battle. So, but I won't battle anymore. And I'll tell you, it rocked her to the core for a year. But now it's better than ever. And now she doesn't try to battle me anymore.
No, she grew up.
Yeah, she grew up. Well, we also have to draw our own boundary, too.
You do have to draw your own boundary, but when you do that, I mean, I had issues with my son, and he grew up. And now he takes a certain position with his kids, and I'm Nani, and I stand back. They don't see me as a working professional or recognize things that maybe I've done and to hopefully make a difference with others. They see me strictly as Nani or Mom, and that's great. And I have one of the most important members of the family, my Italian Wop chocolate brown pit bull.
Oh,
Rocco. Oh yeah, gotta have Rocco. So and Nani babysits. And I do all these other things, but I know I don't do this other. Again, boundaries, as you were saying, were drawn. But you mentioned your daughter was a trust fund baby. So perhaps when, instead of her coming to you, and where you had to write out a check, she had other avenues there. But
it was very temporary, because when you're given, that's a whole other subject. I don't know how much I can really talk about this, because I don't want to ever upset her. But I also know when I saw 11 other children get it, and all of them, just about all of them, have out of it.
Oh yeah, for sure, because they don't know how to manage, and they don't want to listen to anybody else. You know what I mean? What we're talking about here, it's not apples and oranges. Yeah. It just depends on how it comes to the individual, the age, and so on, and then the after effect that lingers on for a long time until either boundaries are set or the realization of, and they grow up.
Yeah, and I think that it is a really good lesson for what she has been through. I think it's a good lesson. So I think she treats it, then again, I don't know. She works in a strip. She makes really good money. So money flows with her. She's great at what she does. She's like top sales and bartending. I'm always on her about saving. When she does save a lot. So I am proud of her when it comes to that. But more importantly, I think it is, like you said, you have to figure out what you want to make you happy. I know so many women that over 50, and I have one friend that woke up at 51 years old, was married for 30 years, and said, "What the hell am I doing?" And she divorced him because she lost herself. Full circle back. Now she's 85. It's another person I want to introduce you to, by the way. Her name is Barbara. She's fabulous. She's 85 now. She's an accomplished author. And now she's back with her husband. And I was like, what an amazing conversation. Because there is a lot of women, I guarantee you, that wake up 48, 49, 50, 51.
They do.
Where they're married for 30 years, just going through the motions, getting their kids through school, but they have totally lost who they are.
They lost who they are. Well, they never knew who they were.
That's true.
And that's the difference. That's the difference. When you are a successful individual, no matter how small, you're discovering who you are. But then, if that stops, they never fully understood who they were. Then there are those that never ever had any experience or exposure as to what their capabilities were. And after 20, 25, 30, 40, whatever time frame is, it's like, what am I doing? I'm not happy. I'm not happy. They never knew who they really were. And so when they want out of their situation, what they're really saying is, they can come up with a trillion excuses, but what it really comes down to is they want to know who they are and what they are capable of accomplishing. Men today, and from my generation, your generation, they still think, the majority, not all, there are those that are breaking through that totally get it. They still think they call the shots. Women are dumb, you do what I say, or we're not going to make it. It's called the control factor. No, definitely 50 and fabulous changes all that.
It absolutely does.
Because, no.
Well, and you get a little bit older, you know what looks good. Things like that. It's just, it's really not all that hard, really. But they have to, it's, at the end of the day, they need support. And that's why they need to come to networking meetings or a ladies group or interact with people that are doing something similar, because that may be where you might find that little confidence. And maybe if you open up to somebody sometime, you realize we're not as different as what they think.
Well, exactly, because, they've kept it bottled up for so long. And something happens when you are approaching the 5-0.
Yeah.
And then when you hit it, it really happens. And then as you go past it, some of them are strong enough to say, you know what? I'm going to find out who I am. And just to be real clear about that, if your partner, your husband, or however you wish to refer to that individual, loves you enough, he should be supportive as you were supportive in the earlier years.
Yes.
If they're not, bottom line, it's their lack of confidence, not yours.
Oh, that's a good point. That's what we were talking about.
It's fear of loss. It's fear of loss.
We were talking about that with the gentleman. My marriage wasn't always fabulous, and a lot of it was because I was on the self-growth and he was not. So one day, I just kept on plugging away. He thought I was crazy, spending money here, spending money there, going here, going there. He's not jealous, so he never was nothing like that. He just didn't get it with the self-growth. But now, full circle, he totally gets it and is probably my biggest fan. So, you have to have those conversations with your spouse,
Communication with your spouse. And for those ladies that are not married, that still have a significant other, the working formula is the same.
Yes.
Communication between two individuals is what's going to help to make it work. You help that person helps you, you run into stumbling blocks, you step back, you go, all right, let's take a look at this again. Back to the drawing board, but you're doing it together.
Law of reciprocity.
Exactly. You're doing it together. Now, for women that are not with somebody, that doesn't mean you have to have somebody to be successful, but maybe you've not recognized the direction you want to go to discover who you really are and your own strengths. Now, that's a total different category.
Yeah.
But even still at that, what is the same? And it comes down to the root and core of confidence.
Yes.
Do you
I love that.
do you have the nerve or the guts to say, you know, I want to do this. I've always wanted to do this, and I wish I could be this. Well, dreams do come true if you work for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'm going to wrap up our show today, and I appreciate you coming here. So I was talking to Margie. I think that Margie and I may do a little, maybe like a little monthly coffee chat, but with mimosas with Margie. So I was talking to Margie about that earlier. Margie and I like to go have an occasional cocktail at lunch. So that's, cocktails cure everything.
Well, I'll tell you what, at times they can kind of relax you so that you have a better perspective of whatever the conversation is.
Well, sometimes it gives you that little boost of confidence you need.
It certainly does. And, we should definitely talk a little more about global power elegance and helping others to understand the total elegance of your power and how to flip that switch.
Yep. And that I think too, we will let you know. I can let you know on a podcast, or on my website, the next event that Margie has, which are always fabulous. I have to encourage you. They are nothing like you have ever seen. And I want to thank my beautiful guest, Margie Shephard, for being with me today. To learn more about this show, please visit us at our website at senioraspects.com or visit us at allaspectradio.com. So until next week, I am your host, Ann Severs, and you are never too young to grow. Scratch that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Senior Aspects, where each week we talk about the issues that affect our world. For more information about this show, please go to senioraspects.com or allaspectsradionetwork.com. Thank you and have a fabulous senior week.